Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I am going to share my home birth story, and I had an unmedicated and a water birth, and so I thought I would share that story with you guys today. And it's also just for my own reflection because I also shared my birth with my son Joseph, and so it's really nice to be able to look back on that footage and be able to remember during this vivid period of time when your memory is still kind of fresh and you can have that story kind of play back for you. And so anyway, I'm going to share my story today. And about a week before she was born, I started having some early labor signs basically, but I didn't know that that's what it was. I find that with both experiences of having children going through birth basically, or going through labor, I have found it to be very unclear both times. I wasn't sure if I was in labor. I wasn't sure if what I was experiencing was labor. And so anyway, I had what I thought to be flu-like symptoms or food poisoning or something, just my body was not acting normal. I couldn't keep food down. I couldn't stay hydrated. It was a really rough week, and it was very up and down. So one day I would feel really sick, and then the next day I would feel normal again. So I was really confused on what was happening, and I just knew I didn't really feel very comfortable in my body during that week. So then the 20th rolls around, and it was actually at midnight where my contractions started. And they started around midnight, and they continued to be 3 to 5 minutes apart from that point forward. And I kind of just had it in my head that maybe I was dehydrated, and maybe I was having more Braxton Hicks because I was dehydrated. So my contractions were already pretty regular, but they were not super consistent in the amount of time between them. So I wasn't really sure what was going on, but from midnight until about 6 or 7 in the morning, I had regular contractions, and I didn't really get much sleep. So at about 7 in the morning, I ended up actually calling my husband. He was upstairs sleeping, and I said that I wanted him to come downstairs and join me because I was starting to feel a bit lonely. I just wanted somebody to be with me and also get me a drink of water and maybe even a snack, because I was just not really feeling up to getting up and doing things when I was having these regular contractions. So he ended up coming down, and then we spent a good couple hours together before Joseph woke up. And at that point, they were fairly manageable contractions still. And I think at this point we sort of knew something was going on, but we weren't really thinking much of it still. We weren't really okay, this is it, this is happening today, she's gonna be born today. We weren't at that place yet. So then Joseph woke up, and we sort of just kind of continued through the morning. It was a little bit hazy at this point for me memory-wise, because I was having these regular contractions, and we were just kind of hanging around the house, and we had breakfast together. And once again, food was not really sticking well for me, and I was just feeling kind of sick every time that I did eat something. And I think food had not really stayed in my body much for that whole week. So and then we ended up eating lunch, and I think after that is when we put Joseph down for his nap. And at this point, I think my contractions had actually stretched out to nearly 10 minutes apart at points. So we were really thinking, okay, maybe this is going to slow down completely, and it's going to maybe even stop, and then who knows when labor will actually begin. And so at this point, we still didn't know, because Steve actually was supposed to have a evening shift that day. So at this point was when we were okay, should he go to work? Should he not go to work? And luckily, he decided to call in and say, hey, my wife has been having contractions, and we're not sure what's going on, but I feel like I should stay with her. She didn't get any sleep last night. So anyway, so he ended up staying home, luckily. And At that point, then we put Joseph down for his nap, and we were kind of like questioning, like, okay, should we try to do some of these like methods that like help to indicate whether labor is like in fact happening? And so we decided to try those, like a couple different methods, and one of them was basically being intimate with your partner. And so around 1 was when we decided to try that. And then pretty much directly after that, I just vomited, like just a ton. And everything that I had eaten for lunch, I just vomited basically. And I was feeling really, the intensity of the contractions picked up really quickly. And I immediately just decided I wanted to go shower and see what would happen from that point, because showering is also a method that, you know, you can either kind of indicate whether labor is valid or not, because it will either stop your contractions or it will progress them. So I got in the shower and immediately my contractions were like every minute. Like, it was crazy how intense and how quick they came on. So both of those methods I think were very effective, and a little too effective. At that time I was actually really regretting it. I was like, no, what have I done? Because it became so intense and so rapidly that I was like, I don't know if I can handle this. Like, it was so fast. So this was around 1, and then I came downstairs after the shower, and so I was going through these contractions and I almost felt like I couldn't do it by myself. Like, it was so intense. The pain was very strong and the pressure was very strong. And so I ended up coming downstairs very quickly, trying to beat the next contraction because they were so fast. And I think at that point I remember that I was telling Steve that I didn't feel like I could do it anymore. Like, it was intensified to the point where I just felt like I really couldn't do it. I was getting kind of tired, and I don't know, it was a lot. And at this point I said, okay, I think you should call the midwife. I think she should come check my dilation. And if I haven't dilated at all, then I want to go to the hospital, because I can't do this for hours. Like, I can't, with this intensity, I can't do this, you know, all day or something. So she ended up coming, and she actually lives in our village. So she was here almost immediately. And so at this point I actually had said for this whole pregnancy that I didn't really want them to check my dilation at all, because in my last pregnancy, I found it a little bit traumatic. It was very painful. And I also kind of got the feeling maybe it even stalled my labor. So yeah, I had this in my mind that maybe I wouldn't even have, you know, my dilation checked at all. And so they kind of knew that. They knew that it wasn't something that they knew it was something that I was considering not having done. So I think that they were maybe surprised that we called and said, yeah, we would like you to check the dilation to see where things are at, where things are at. And I was actually excited about the idea that maybe it could stall labor, because at least that meant that, the pain would stop for a little while. So she got here, she checked my dilation, and immediately she kind of had a surprised look on her face. And I said, what is it? And then a contraction started, and it was a very intense contraction. And she said, wait till this contraction's over, and then I will tell you. And so I went through the contraction, and it was super, super intense. That was the most intense one, I think, yet. And then very shortly after, Steve was asking her what's going on while I was having the contraction. And she told him what it was, basically what my dilation was. And then as I was going through the end of the contraction, he was like, you're doing so well, we're almost there, we're gonna meet the baby. So then she was like, okay, you're 9 centimeters dilated. So at that point, then we were like, whoa, okay, this is the real deal. Everything that has been going on has not been for nothing. Like, this has been, this is the real deal. She's going to be here. And so at this point, I was still laying on the couch from them having checked my dilation, and I was having very quick contractions still. And all of a sudden, I had this feeling, this sensation that was different. And it was like this very intense pressure in my bum area. And it was such a strong pressure that I was like, whoa. And actually around that time that I was feeling that, my midwife said, do you feel any sensation? Do you feel an urge to push, anything like that? And I said, yes, actually I do. I feel this intense pressure. And she said, okay, that's awesome. Like, we have the birth pool set up. You know, Sib was running around trying to set things up in between contractions, and he managed to get the birth pool set up just in time. And so they helped me get into the birth pool. And I think at that point, then they said, okay, anytime now you have a contraction, if you feel like pushing, just do. Like, push if you want to. You don't have to push. Just kind of let your body tell you what to do. And so I listened to that, and when I started pushing, I remember it felt a lot better, because it felt like I could kind of do something with the contraction rather than just experiencing the pain. It was more like, okay, I'm using this. So I started pushing, and I think I only pushed maybe 5 or 6 times. I'm not exactly sure, but I think it was something like that. And I think it was about the 3rd contraction of pushing where I had my water break. And that was also a very nice, like, kind of like oddly nice sensation, because it was a little bit of a release of pressure, and it was just, yeah, it was just such like a sudden pop. And so that was kind of yeah, that was an exciting moment in the transition as well. And yeah, I think also I should mention, like, during this whole time, like, I am struggling. Like, I really feel like I cannot do it. I'm really kind of, I think I told the midwives many times, I can't do this anymore. This is too hard. Like, this is too much. I can't do it. I probably said that a lot. And they were so encouraging. They kept just telling me, you can do this. You're going to meet your baby really soon. You only have a little bit more time, and then it's done. Like, they just kept reminding me of these things and just really empowering me. And I could just feel that the whole room believed in me. And that was probably the most beautiful part of the whole experience, is just the overall feeling that everyone was believing in me, that I could do it, and there was no wavering in that. And to me, that was exactly what I needed. There was no hesitation. And I think if anyone would have hesitated, if anyone would have said, oh, well, maybe you need some pain relief, maybe we need to go to the hospital, you know, I think if there would have been any wavering at all, it would have affected me a lot. But there wasn't. And everyone just was saying, you can do this. You are built for this. You know, they just kept reminding me of what I needed to hear. And up until the very end, and through every contraction, and through the hardest points. And yeah, so I kept kind of with my visualizations throughout the whole labor experience, all of my contractions. I kind of had these different images that were in my head of, I was trying to imagine like opening, and so I would imagine like the cervix as like a flower blossoming and opening, and I was trying to be really like visual during the contractions, like in my head of just opening and releasing. And I would also, like with some of the contractions, I would imagine like a wave crashing over. And so I had a lot of these like visualizations that really helped to kind of keep me focused and keep the intention of opening rather than tightening, because the last thing that you want obviously during labor when you're trying to get a baby out of you is to clench up or to tighten, or yeah. So I was really trying to be intentional with my thoughts and trying to think of things that allowed for opening. And one of the biggest things that I would say that was helpful for this was trying to actually walk towards, like this is kind of how my head was mentally, is I was trying to walk towards the pain rather than away from it. I was trying to lean into the pain rather than getting away from it. And I think in labor, that's one of the most important things you can do if you experience a lot of pain, is to lean into it and don't try not to clench away from it. Try not to you really have to I think if you've experienced labor, you might know what I mean, but you really have to do everything you can to allow your body to experience the fullness of each contraction, rather than to pull away from it, because you obviously, your contractions are useful. They are helping your body. They are helping to do exactly what your body needs to be doing. So yeah, I don't know, that for me was really, really helpful. And I think just having that intention of leaning into the pain versus trying to get away from it was everything that I needed. And it really helped me to, I think, dilate quicker as well. And I think it made labor more intense in some ways, but I think that that's exactly what it needed to be, to have her be born in the way that she was. So anyway, kind of going back to in the birth pool, so I had those contractions after my water broke. I had a couple more contractions of pushing, and then her head was out, and they said I could feel and you know, feel that she had a whole head of hair, and you know, this beautiful brown hair. And at that point, I really wanted them to actually go get my son, who was sleeping, and he, you know, Joseph was having his nap during that time. So during the whole intense part of my labor, he was actually napping, and he didn't wake up at all. So at this point, when I felt her head, I said, oh, can you maybe go get Joseph? Because I would like him to see her be born. And actually, we had prepared him a lot for this. Like, I watched a lot of birth videos with him. Like, he saw fully exactly what birth looks like full on. And he understood it, and he actually got excited about it, and he was excited about the fact that his sister would be born that way. And so I had this in my mind, but actually, unfortunately, our Kramzorg said no. She didn't ask any questions about whether he would be prepared for it or whatever, but she just said, no, let's wait till after the birth. So for me, that was a little unfortunate. I think that she should have at least asked some questions about, like, oh, is he really prepared for it? But she didn't do that, and she just kind of said no, and we would wait until after the baby was born. So anyway, moving on. I think after her head was out, it only took one more contraction, and then her whole body was out. And I got to reach down, and they said, oh, she's out, you can reach down and pick her up. And I reached down into the water, and I got to pick her up and pull her to my chest. And first I had to wait just a second because she had the cord wrapped around, I think at least once, maybe twice. And I got to hold her, and I was just in pure shock. Like, at this point, I was just like jaw dropped, shocked. Like, what just happened? Is she seriously here? How did this go so quickly? Like, I was in full, like, in awe of everything that I had just experienced. And that, yeah, it was really unreal. And I felt so good at that point too. Like, I felt so much energy. I think that's when you get rushed with adrenaline and just, you know, all kinds of feelings. So I felt so alive and so good, and I couldn't believe I was looking at her. And she was doing well, and she was yeah, just everything that I'd ever hoped for. They gave us a little bit of time, and then after a little bit, you know, they're just helping to kind of splash water onto her to keep her warm. And I think they put like a little towel on her so then we could keep getting the towel wet and keep her warm. But I got to stay in the pool for a little bit, which was really nice, and it was really warm water, so that helps too. And then after a little bit, they said, okay, I think maybe your placenta will be coming soon. And do you have any contractions now? And I pretty much at the moment they asked that, I started having a contraction. And I said, oh yeah, I feel one right now. And they said, okay, when you're having the contraction, you can just start pushing, and then, you know, you can try to birth the placenta. And they were really low pressure about it, which I loved. They were really relaxed and no pressure at all. And I think it pretty much happened immediately and naturally. And I think it was only one contraction, and then the placenta was out. And then they asked if we wanted to have the placenta, or if we wanted to cut the cord. And we said that we wanted to wait for a little while. So we decided to wait until it stopped, till it turned white, until it had stopped pulsing. And I think it was attached to her for at least an hour, maybe nearly 2. And so they just put the placenta in a bowl next to me, and I was holding her. And at this point we had gotten out of the bath, for the birth pool, and they had made a little spot for me on the couch, and I laid on the couch with her, and they just kind of observed us and kind of just observed her. And I just remember feeling so happy and joyful. And Joseph had come down actually while I was in the pool, I forgot to mention, and he was just elated. He was so surprised and excited, and he was just very, very joyful with us. And he came and sat with us on the couch and just looked at her and was smiling and just happy. And it was just beautiful. It was a really beautiful moment. And at this point, I think, is when we decided that they would check to see if I had any tears or if I needed stitches. And I said that I wanted to know right away, because I'd felt so good that I was thinking, I don't think I had any tears or anything. Like, I just felt great. And they ended up giving Mia to, I think actually, no, sorry, I gotta trail back a little bit. First, we waited until we cut the cord, I believe. So Joseph actually was the one who helped to cut her umbilical cord. And then shortly after that is when we handed her to Seb, and he held her while they checked my if I needed stitches. And they checked and they said, oh, it's not too bad, but you do need some stitches in a couple places. So and then after that, the one part of my birth that was, I would say, less than ideal and maybe even a little traumatic for our experience. At this point, I was laying down still on the couch, and I didn't have me at that moment. Steve was still holding her, and the midwives were surrounding. And the Kramzor came over, and she pushed really, really hard on my stomach. And it was all of a sudden, and she didn't say anything prior to doing it. And apparently this is something that they do sometimes for if you've lost a lot of blood, or if you have like maybe blood clots. I don't know fully exactly why they do it, but sometimes they have to put a lot of pressure on the stomach to try to I don't fully understand it, but it's like something to do with like pushing the uterus down. I don't know. But there wasn't any implication or need for that our midwives had basically said. They told us even later that was not something that they felt was necessary. But it was really all of a sudden, and it shocked me so much that I actually held her hands and I pulled them off of my stomach, and she kept pushing and saying, no, I have to do this, I have to do this. And I said, no, because it hurt so bad, and I bursted out crying in tears because it hurt so bad. That kind of pressure on your stomach is so intense anyway, but let alone after you've just had a baby there and then there's no longer a baby there. So it was really, really intense and scary. And at that moment, Seb was standing next to me while she was still pushing and said, you need to stop. She's telling you to stop. And finally, then she stopped, and she was kind of cowering away about it. And I think that she wasn't maybe even in, I don't know if she even knew what she was doing or if she knew why she was doing it. I don't know. I wish I could talk to her about it and now and see what her intention was. Because at that point, the midwives had said I had very little blood loss, and I was doing super well, and there was no need for anything like that from their understanding. So anyway, that was one little blurb in our story that has been a little bit hard to process, but at the same time, like, I still look at the whole story as something that was incredibly beautiful and wonderful altogether. So anyway, from that point forward, we went upstairs and we got cozy in our bedroom, and and I just did a lot of skin to skin time. I wanted to just have her on my chest, naked, or just in a diaper, for as much as I could, and that's what I did, and it was really lovely. And the midwives were super supportive of every desire that I had, and they were just keeping an eye on us for a little while and just making sure we were all doing well. And then from that point, I think yeah, it's a little hazy now because we just started relaxing, and we were just enjoying looking at her and processing everything that had just happened. And yeah, from then on, I think it was mostly just, yeah, bliss. Like, we were just so elated and joyful and excited that we were a family of 4, and that everything just went so beautifully and quickly. And yeah, and she was born at 4 p.m. So I think I mentioned that around 1:30 is when everything really intensified. So from 1:30 to 4 p.m. was pretty fast. And then for the whole evening, like I think I remember Steve made a really nice dinner for us, and I was so excited to eat, and finally food was staying. Yeah, I could stay hydrated, everything was sticking again, and so I was very, very thankful for that, because I was so hungry. And I think from that point forward, I think it's kind of hard to remember what we did. I believe that at that point, Joseph, my camera stopped. From that point, we put Joseph down for bed, and then, or Steve put Joseph down for bed, and we just got to relax together and just enjoy the evening and night together. And from that point, we had the Kramzorg come over from the next day. So she came in the morning and stayed for, I believe, 6 hours. I think the first 3 days were 6 hours. And it was so wonderful having that maternity care and that help. And they do so much for you here in the Netherlands. Like, it's such a blessing, and that's just part of everyone's birth story, if they want that, to be able to have that kind of care and quality of care. And so we had the Kramzorg come, and they check on you, they check on the baby, they make sure everything's going well, they help you with breastfeeding, they do all the little checks and kind of writing stuff down to make sure that everything seems good and in line. They help clean your house, they do your laundry, they clean your toilets, your shower, anything that really needs done, they will do for you. They'll even make you food if you want, and snacks and stuff like that, and drinks. And it was just wonderful. They vacuumed, it was just the best thing ever. And I cannot imagine, experiencing anything other than that. I think if I lived in the US again, it would be very hard to go back to not having that kind of care. So all around, all of the people who helped us were so amazing. Like, they were so helpful. They did everything that we could have wished and more. And yeah, it was just such a good experience. And it was super helpful also for Steve, because it would have been a lot for him to take on all of the house stuff, taking care of us, taking care of Joseph. Like, that would have been so heavy on him. So this way it made it a little bit less, or a lot less actually, at least half the day. And yeah, so it was really good. And so here in the Netherlands, you get a Kramzorg. I think for standard care, you get like 5 or 6 days. So I think it probably depends on the person and the experience of birth and how things are going, or if you need extra care or not. But from my experience, I think it was 5 days, or 6 days. So yeah, and it was, just amazing. And I think immediately I felt really good afterwards. I started having really good energy from pretty much the moment that she was born. And, even the first nights where, she wasn't sleeping long stretches at all. I still felt so good and so much energy, and, your body really knows what it's doing when it comes to, birth and after birth, and it's just amazing. So I was just really empowered by the whole experience, and I felt really strong and really capable and proud. So that feels really good to me, to be able to share that. And so that's pretty much my whole birth story. And if you guys have any questions, I would love to answer more below, because this whole field of interest is super interesting to me, and I love to share such an empowering experience, especially after my birth with Joseph, where it was a lot more unknowns and things that I just didn't, I didn't know what was going on as much, where this time I really felt like more empowered and in the know, and at least as far as like what my body was doing and capable of, and yeah, just to have that support from the right people, and everything was just wonderful. So yes, please ask questions down below if you have any, and yeah, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next video.